Oh, okay.
Let's do this. I'm so excited for y'all to be here. It feels like it's been months. What, last time we talked?
It was months. It's been months.
Yeah. That's okay though.
Okay.
All right. So either one of you can go first. It doesn't matter. But like we talked about last time, just tell me a little bit about yourself, how y'all met, and all about GCSCORED, and then we'll get started from there.
Okay. So basically you're saying we're
Okay.
We're on. We're live. We're ready to go.
Well, in terms of how we met, boy, I don't know how much it's quite detailed, but our relationship started probably before you were born, Casey, way back in the early 90s in the lovely state of California. So we were both there during that time and had an opportunity to work together. And gee, the rest is history. Now that's in a really tiny nutshell. As a social worker, so, we both, we were working. I actually hired Yvonne when she was coming out of school with her bachelor's in social work.
It was my master's in counseling, and
was it master's in counseling in 92,
and my bachelor's was in social work in 90. So when I met you, when you hired me, I had my master's. Yeah, I already had both.
So I was in charge of the case management and social work. Well, human services has really evolved over the years. So if you've been around as long as I've been around, and I know you haven't, but others who may listen to this podcast could relate to a time when things were siloed in some industries, like in healthcare, for instance. Most of my experience has been in healthcare. And for a long time, like today, currently, most hospitals have case management services or a division. Prior to that, hospitals, particularly the larger ones, had social work services. And then they had what's called utilization review, which typically were nurses, who were looking at insurance coverage and making sure patients had what they need to get the care that they need. And then in the 90s, at some point in time, there was an integration of both services. Now, they all worked together, but they worked in separate silos prior to that. So at some point in time in the 90s, across the country, many of those services started to integrate social work and nursing or utilization management, utilization review. So why am I saying all that? I was in charge of the social work component, right? And I'm looking for social workers. So I utilized Yvonne's background in social work to become a part of our team. I think all of that was just to get to that point. And so we both, matriculated on. Since that time, I went on to worked on higher ed, and Yvonne did the same thing. We were in separate places. And then Yvonne, I don't even remember the year we actually got back together face to face, but, we maintain contact. Friendship is something where, it's a true friendship when you aren't speaking every day or every month, but when you do get together, it is as if I just saw you yesterday. So we maintained that personal and professional relationship over the years, and then came GCSCORED. I'm fast forwarding because I know we have a lot to share, about GCSCORED. Was there anything else about our coming together that you wanted to share?
I think what you said is sufficient. We've been, we've been connected and friends, sisters, since the time we met. So it's just been a blessing for both of us. I know for me, and
same.
We're here to continue to change the world. That's what we are here for. That's what we do.
Y'all definitely, y'all shine with the ability to do that, especially as partners and sisters in crime. So before we jump into GCSCORED, I always love asking this question because I think it's really important to everyone in the field, probably everybody who does anything in the world. Dr. Larrier, we'll start with you. What brought you into social work and human services? And then Dr. Fleming, I'd love you to follow up with your answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what brought me to the social work, counseling, psychology, and human services? Because I have degrees in all of those. And so, just to give you some background, I grew up in the Caribbean, and my parents are very service oriented. My dad was a pastor. My mom was, also a pastor, still doing that kind of work. And so I grew up in an environment, and this is going to speak to what we do here with GCSCORED, an environment, the soil. I was nurtured and seeds were planted in my life, in the environment of my growing up years, where service, what you do for others, what you do for Christ and what you do for others was paramount. And so I saw it. I didn't only hear it, but I saw it demonstrated. And as for the entire time growing up. And so going into social work, going into counseling, psychology, all human services, all of that is what I grew up. I was nurtured. Those were the essential growth elements that were a part of my formative years. And so I could do no other. I could do nothing else but what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how you shared that. And, similar experience for myself. Now, my parents were not pastors, but they were very much so involved with ministry. And I would describe them as servants. They were doers. They were all about helping others to be all they can be. They took on boarders, people from other areas, family members or distant relatives who wanted to come to the larger township where we live to go to school. They needed a place to stay, and my parents took them on. So, growing up as a child, I didn't know anything about social work. I didn't know what it was called, but I had a heart for helping and for giving back. Like Yvonne's experience, and as I said, my parents were active in ministry. So all I knew was home environment and church environment. And both of those environments were training and giving, helping. And that was the thing that nurtured and cultivated me. And even when I went to school, when I went to college, I didn't go to college to study social work. I had to go to college. That was, you're going to college, right? You finish high school, you go to college. But it was learning more. I think the coursework, the faculty, the instructors helped to mentor me, and being involved with community organizations still and giving back those footprints led to the degree that fit best, which was social work, and social work on a larger scale, more of a macro level, because I was always interested in more of the larger environment and how things work and the impact of the environment on the individual. I recognized early on that a lot of people were in conditions or situations not because they wanted to be that way, but because of a larger system that they were in. And I came to find that social work, I was in political science and social work. Those two went hand in hand with me. And that's where I put my stake in the sand. And it was on after that.
That's perfect. I love how y'all both described that. I was not, just like y'all, not brought into thinking like at a young age, social work and human services is a thing. I was bound to be a zoologist. You could not change my mind. And then I went to college. I was like, a different kind of animal, people, and so tell me, we're going to switch pages to GCSCORED. It sounds to me that your experiences growing up, the nurturing side of it, witnessing adults around you, how have an impact on who you are and what you want to be. kind of revealed to you what it means and the needs for service. Is that right?
That's correct.
So how did that seed what has now become GCSCORED? Because y'all don't just offer what the general population sees as a nonprofit, providing services, volunteer service, collecting canned goods, like something y'all provide is a little less tangible, but a lot deeper on an individual and group level. So please break that down for me.
Well, I want to address what Casey said about that. What we do seems to be deeper, than the average or than many organization. And it is. And it's that way intentionally because it gets back to, and let me just say, Dr. Larrier is the CPU of the organization, right? She's the brainchild, the visionary. And anyways, I'm going to pause there because I could go on. There's so many great things that comes out of that mind that's sitting at the center of our screen there. But as we shared about our early experiences and how we were being shaped and not really recognizing that we were being shaped. And the piece that I mentioned about, recognizing that there are people in the world who are in conditions and situations, some don't even recognize the why they are the way they are, or things are the way they are. They just are kind of living unconsciously and just existing through life. So out of the brainchild, came this notion of the need to renew. The minds need to be renewed. We can't just do things we can't just do things physically without purpose, without meaning, without firm foundation. And the main thing is that, and that is what's happening in the lives of people, right? Most individuals we just sort of reactionary. We just respond. We just do without much thought to how or why we do what we do. And then came GCSCORED with a mission to renew minds, transform lives, and create safer communities. And it's so vital during these times, the create safer communities part, because we see it all around us, right? All you got to do is turn on the afternoon news and we see all the incivilities that are happening around us. And, most people want to say, take the guns off the street, or, whatever those issues are. They see it as a quick fix. Well, if we just take the guns off the street, everything will be okay. Well, if we just give everybody the right to life, everything will be okay. There are numerous situations, but it's not that easy. And we need to be more conscious and more aware and deeper. It was a term you used earlier about deeper. And we really do need to take the time to go back to what are we thinking? What are we thinking before we're doing, right? And so our mission is to renew minds, transform lives, and create safer communities. And we do that in multiple ways. Our platform is to engage, to educate, equip, empower, and to get people engaged in that whole process of renewing the mind and transforming their lives so that they can create safer communities before we can talk about creating a safer space where we can live. That renewing the mind needs to take place. But we do envision, a society where we all can live together. We can live together, free, supportive, one another, individuals at every part of the globe, at every sector, every level of society. If you think about the ecology system, we can all work together, and not just work, but live free. We see these signs, live, love, laugh, that is possible, but it does take work. And that is the work that we have been undertaking over the last many years.
Yeah. And so thank you, Geneva. So GC Scored, as Geneva said, we focus on renewing minds. That's our mission. Renew minds, transform lives, create safer communities. And the concept behind that is one's mind has to be renewed before you can transform your life and before you can create safer communities. So it has to start with each of us. And the mind is, the mind is where it all begins, right? The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And we have a statement in a quote, behind every behavior is a belief or a mindset or an attitude. And so we know that the mind is where everything begins and ends. Well, then I asked the question, how do we do that? How does somebody renew their mind and then transform their lives and then create a safer community? How? What are the steps? And that's how we came up with the steps in the room of time process, right? That's where we came, because we answered that question. How do we help people renew minds? And in answering that question, we also asked the question, why is it that this 5-step process in other settings is so inaccessible? And how then could we make it accessible? We know, there's a preponderance of statistics that talks about individuals in the US and across the globe that have mental health needs and are unable to access support for those mental health needs, right? And so we were intentional about developing the Cultivating Seeds system framework so that it is accessible, relatable, easy to learn, easy to teach, and several other factors that is culturally responsive, destigmatizing, demystifying. All of those factors were intentionally included, made a part of the Cultivating Seed system, which includes the room of time process, because we were answering the question, how does someone renew their mind? And if we want to teach individuals, if we want to engage and educate and equip and empower individuals to renew their mind, we have to make it accessible. We have to make it culturally responsive. We have to make sure it is destigmatized and demystified so that we meet the needs of humans everywhere, right? We meet the needs of humans everywhere. And what's the one thing that all of us humans have to have, or we know something about? What is the one thing? It doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's some type of agricultural element or some type of,
absolutely,
some type of element related to nature, right? So air. That's why we have the statement. That's one of the reasons we have the statement, as air is to life, so are social emotional competencies to relationships. They are like the air we breathe. Mm-hmm. So agriculture is the unifying, universal, benign, non-judgmental framework or illustrator that we use to talk about human growth, development, and renewing minds, transforming lives, and creating safer communities. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where we're coming from, where GCSCORED is coming from. And so that is the CSS framework, which includes the Rumor Time process, is our engine, is the engine of GCSCORED.
Absolutely. So that no matter where in the world a person or an organization or a community might exist, when they look at the Cultivating Seeds framework through the lens of agriculture, they can relate. They can get it. It's applicable. And and it's beautiful. It is so beautiful. When that unfolds, when we see that unfold and people get it.
Y'all bring the human back to nature, which, like you said, it's brilliant and it's very recognizable and relatable to people across the globe. Like, I don't, even those who you wouldn't even find across the internet or, ever meet in your daily lives, like they're going to understand some point of that in their own culture, their own background.
Absolutely.
It's genius. Y'all are geniuses.
Yeah,
and it's so holistic, right?
Thank you. But I will tell you, I cannot sit here and let you say I am genius and whatever. I may be so, but I have to tell you, this was all downloaded to me from God. Okay? It was all, and that's where we will start, right? So I cannot take all the credit for this. I can't take any of the credit. It was God. It was nobody but Him. So
you're a humbled being for sure.
Well,
from my perspective, the world, universe functions. I think you can take credit because if you're one and the same and the thing that made, or you're the image of God, like you might not see yourself as God, but you are in a sense acting on
the image.
Right.
Yeah, I'm doing this work. I'm doing the work that He has given me the tools and equipped me to do.
Right. And from my philosophy of life, you could have chosen not to. Right. So
that's true. That's true.
You chose to do what was in your heart.
Yeah.
Y'all are so amazing.
Casey, you are so fun. You are fun.
I'm just fascinated by people.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, but I like your perspective, Casey, because, the word says we are co-laborers with Him, right? So as a co-laborer, we are His hands and feet here in the earth, right? So
let me
I'm
try
grateful.
to wrap this all around the way I see it because I can see how it all connects. Y'all have provided, and we'll get into the Rumor Time process and all that in just a moment, a space and a process that does encourage and highlight the free will or the power of the individual to work with their own nurturing process. Because it is like a responsibility. I feel like we all are on the same page about that. Regardless of your religious or spiritual background, there's a free will and responsibility that comes to taking care of yourself and then also providing service to others.
Well, it does require personal responsibility. And that's one of the things that we educate on is starting with the self. Professionals in the field, they want to learn so they could apply it with their clients. And we believe it is important for them to be fully engaged with the process. They need to have an appreciation of it for themselves first. So we urge people to go, when they go through the training, they need to absorb it. They need to focus on themselves first. Before and because once they get it, once they learn it for themselves, then application is a breeze. You can, when I say application, I'm talking about applying it to your work, to your setting, whether you're in private practice or, working in an agency, once you have gone through that room and time process for yourself, then you can better appreciate it and therefore teach it to others, teach it to your clients. Because the idea is to teach people how to begin to be more conscious living and not living unconsciously. And so it is essential for us to go through the process, learn it ourselves, and then we can begin to translate it and educate others.
My follow-up question is,
Sure.
What does conscious living and embodiment of this process look like? What does it mean to be conscious in our service to others? Because that's a word thrown around in all sorts of ways, right? In different languages and settings. So What does that mean in the process?
And it has everything to do with being mindful, being present, where you are and how you are, why you are, being fully engaged, being conscious,
right.
being aware.
And being aware.
Being aware.
Yeah. Conscious living. What is conscious living? What does it look like? It's the whole room of time process, right? That's what the room of time process does. It moves you from unconscious to conscious living. When you recognize your thoughts, your interactions, your mindsets and emotions, when you understand them, when you dig deep, when you go to the root, understanding your thoughts, your interactions, your mindsets and emotions, when you learn how to manage self-management and relationship management skills, you recognize, you manage your thoughts, interactions, mindsets and emotions, when you learn how to express, sharing and also helping others, showing empathy, social awareness. And then when you learn how to make good decisions, healthy, responsible decisions, all of that moves you. Once you begin this process of roomerizing, you are moving from unconscious living to conscious living. So what is conscious living is roomerizing. And
unconscious is the absence of all those things that Dr. Larrier just shared. And unconscious, it starts with the individual, but the thing, it permeates, right? Because it's systemic, right? You can see unconscious
everywhere.
Unconsciousness in protocol and policies, I tend to be a macro thinker and strategist. And when I think about unconscious, sometimes I have seen unconscionable policies that, or, regulations, that can really be harmful to the lives of people. So, so it's essential that we understand and go through the how, that room of time process, that renewing the mind process, going through those steps so that we can get to that place of being more conscious about everything, about our lives, about that piece you brought up earlier about personal responsibility. So we can't just do something because we feel like it, or, fly off the handle at a response that somebody says, but we got to dig deep to find out, why am I responding in that way? What is it that person said to me that caused me to respond in that way? And so it requires a process, and I call it peeling the onion skins back, but it's the room of time process to get to the root, to get to the very core of why are we behaving the way we are, and it starts with what we're believing, what's on our minds.
And it's a like you said, it's a process. That's why we call it the room of time process. And it's not an add-on. It's being able to think about what you're thinking about, to think about what is in the neuroscience world, it's called metacognition, right? Metacognition. And so what we did was break that down, again, making it accessible to let everybody know that they are engaging in a process that helps them, empowers them, equips them, educates them to be in the driver's seat of their life, so that they're not existing on autopilot, right? And then, wondering, well, why do I keep getting in these kinds of relationships? Or why do I keep, getting in trouble? Why do I keep doing the same thing over and over? Because you're living unconsciously. And so we have the key to conscious living. That's what the room and time process is.
Do y'all realize that you've taken something that is often considered, for hundreds of years too, considered woo-woo, and made it into a tangible, mentally processable process? Like,
yeah.
These are things that I've heard in my own philosophy classes and religious studies classes, and that rarely ever tips toe into the work that I do and I see other people do. I love when it does, but it's phenomenal what y'all have created. Be sure to tune in for part 2, premiering Monday, September 12th. Check out everything GC scored on their website, everypiecematters.com, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more from the Roundtable. Everything those can be found on our website, nationalhumanservices.org.